On my end, I'm going to show you what I am going to release later on today for the break. Um, it's all the way down here. So I'm going to release another thing called Winter Break, as well as our lecture that we're doing today. But we're just going to bounce around with styling today. So we won't be going too much into it, but the video would also be here. For the winter break, you'll have some brain teasers that you will get to try out. And essentially what a brain teaser is it's just a little coding problem. And for example, with this coding problem, you are going to try to solve it with Ruby and JS. And it's just going back to like those early weeks of Ruby and JavaScript fundamentals of where we're trying to solve a problem by using those types of logic. So that will be how that would work. So for this one, for the first brain teaser, how many times does Fox come up within the string? And then you had to build out a function to kind of count how many iterations they are with whatever is being passed here. But yeah, so that is it. And you'll have multiple as well. And then there's also the project as well. But I'll actually talk about that towards the end of it, just because it is going to be something else. And then with this, the break is going to start tomorrow. So you have all of the rest of the week as well as all of next week. And you don't come back until January 3rd, where we'll go back into lecture. I actually have both of the assignment due on that Thursday instead of that Monday. So that way you'll have a little bit more to work on it. But yeah, so that will be the handyman assignment. And then the assignment I'll be talking about towards later on when we'll talk about the assignment there. But that's pretty much it of what is coming up. Today, our game plan is to style our application, work with a bit of styling and some images and things like that. But any questions about what's coming up? Okay, so let's go ahead and get started then. I'll close this one. We're actually going to style our yesterday's project for today, just so we can get a hold of what styling is and how we can style and all of that. And then afterwards, we are going to go ahead and incorporate some images and talk about other ways to style. But with styling itself, you should leave it towards the end of your application, just because it just takes a long time to style. And you kind of see why in a bit of what we are going to be doing within our project here. But when you do want to style, leave it towards the end. The reason for that is that you should have everything working first, and then you are going to go ahead and make it look good. Because if you have like a button, like this button looks really good, but then you click on it and nothing happens, then that kind of defeats the purpose of having that anyways, right? So that's why you should have things working first. And then once everything is all good to go, then you are going to go back and style things here and there. So that's why for this particular step, you are going to be doing it towards the end of your individual project life cycle. So it'll be towards the end. So there are a few ways that we can style itself, but before we go into that, I actually want to go over some stuff that will kind of help us out with styling, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And these are actually past lectures that we already released. I'm just going to talk a little bit about them of what we are going to be doing with that. So first one is CSS tools. So let me go ahead and open this in a new tab. So that one is number 27 if you want to take a look at that. The other one is going to be, don't know where that is. It's called UX design. Oh, okay. I'll push this one up. I'll release this one early since it's not going to be released yet. So I'm going to have that be released as well. So I'll explain what that is. And then I think there's one more, but the other one has to do with Sass, and we're not going to be doing Sass. So we'll most likely be doing these two things. So for these two lectures, I'll first start off with the CSS tools, and then we'll go into the UX design. And again, I'll release the UX design in a sec. So with the CSS tools, this is just going back into the prep work of items to kind of help you out to style things and to position things the way that you want them to. For example, every element inside of your web page has something called a box model. And the box model is just a certain spacing that you can control within the content itself. And they all have certain height and width, and then they all have some padding, the borders, and then the margins. And you can also add in anything of any set amount on each of these sides. Like for example, this is the top, bottom, right, and left. And you can do that for both margin, border, and padding. Content, you can only do like width and height just because of that's what everything is. An example of a content is going to be like a paragraph tag. So that will be your paragraph tag. And then that's how big you want it. That's how much padding you want it, some borders, margins, etc. This kind of goes into how you can manipulate it if you are interested. And to kind of show you the box model, let's say this element right here, that little title there, that little H1, let's go ahead and click on that. If you scroll into your elements tab inside of your dev tools, these are all of the styles that that element has. So this H1 has all of these styles. And by default, they should have some styles like so. Later on, when we have a style library, it would then go ahead and do other things. This one is from our index.js and stuff like that. But if you scroll to the very bottom, this is where you can find the box model of each and every single element. So I can do it for that, or I can do it for this button. It also has its own box model as well. So if you want to have particular spacing or borders, you have to manipulate the box model. What I mean by that is that the padding is going to be the spaces that you would put inside of your individual item itself. So that would be the padding. The border, that is kind of like the outline of the individual element. And then the margin is the outside. So for example, if you want to have things a little bit more space, you would go ahead and add in more margin over here. But just note that anything that you do, you can go ahead and do them here or change them in here. Like I can go ahead and delete some styles or play around with it. That doesn't save. So that is the caveat of doing it this way. This is just to help you kind of figure things out. And let's say that that does look good. I do need a margin left on this button with 40 pixels. I need to go ahead and do that within my code. So then that will go ahead and apply for that button. So this is just for a development tool to help you style. So you can play around with elements, see what styles certain elements have, and play around with their box model. So that's a little bit about the box model itself. The next item is going to be positioning. So you can go ahead and position things multiple ways. Like you can do it towards the left or towards the right. This will walk you through that here, as well as Flexbox. Flexbox is where you can have rows and columns. And in most style libraries, it will go ahead and add some Flexbox styles into that there. So you can do items here or over here or in the center. You can do all of that within Flexbox itself. So this will kind of walk you through of how to do that. You can also do it the similar thing with CSS Grid. And that's the alternative one. So you can go ahead and try those out too. So that is more for positioning. If I want to have things positioned somewhere on my screen, I can use Flexbox, which is the most common one. So that's just CSS tools that we have and we just need to know about to kind of play around with some of our styles and positioning. The UX design is actually a whole different field and topic that is going to go into more into a user's experience of how it would be good for whoever is using this application. And how that works is that when we are building application, we're not building it for us. Like maybe we want it a certain way. We're most likely going to be building it for a client or for someone else. With that, you have to go ahead and also take into account of certain aspects of the application. Like for example, if I have to press 4 different buttons just to get to my form, that's not a good user experience. A better user experience would be just to press 1 button and that would take me directly into my form. So that's kind of like laying out how you are going to be building your individual websites. That's where you take into account of what the user would have to do to kind of navigate or work around items here. A good user experience that we did inside of this project is this membership level. Yes, technically it would be easier for us to have a text box, but then we don't know if the user knows that there are different membership levels, and these are the only membership levels we have. So a better thing for us to do for a better user experience is to have them choose out of a drop down. So that way they are only limited to these particular options instead of having them type in their own membership level. So those are just small little things that you can add, especially to forms and other things around, just to enhance the user experience with that. So this kind of goes into this a little bit more of what is user experience and why we are going to be utilizing it and why we care and all that. But most of it is going to be just to plan out what would be the best for using the application. The next thing is, and this will make a little bit more sense for your project that we'll introduce today, is that what the different types of styles, you are going to be playing around with different types of colors and fonts and images, because you're not going to have just straight text like what we have here. You're just going to have other stuff added on into it, like images, and that's what we'll be implementing today. Certain fonts and colors, and certain styling and themes that you'll have inside of your website. So that way it'll make it a little bit more like visually appealing and a lot more realistic of how a realistic website would be. And this talks about the F pattern and Z pattern. What that means is that if you are creating something and you want to have like kind of key points, you should do them at the top right hand most area. The reason for that is that when people read or when people look at items, they look at first the top left hand side, and then they kind of go side to side and then down and then the bottom. So that is something that you should also be aware about, as well as how we can put our most important content at those areas inside of our web page. Because if I'm building my own about me, but I didn't put my name until all the way at the bottom right hand side, then I really don't know if this website is for me or for someone else. So that's why you should put it right at the center or right around this area here, so it knows that that is the most important detail of that site. So those are more design principles there. And it does go a little bit more in depth because, again, UX design is a whole nother field. So you can definitely go into more of like what colors are there, what fonts work best with what color and what layouts and images and things like that too. And even shadows and different tints, those are all things that you can also see. We'll go into color in a sec as well. And then the last 2 things is that wireframes. And we'll be talking more about wireframes when we come back from break, because you will be given a wireframe. And essentially what a wireframe is that it is just a visual layout of what the website should be doing, as well as what it would be looking like. So that's what a wireframe is to kind of help us visually see where things are going to where and what things should be going where as well. So here is an example of a wireframe. So here's the logo, some navigation, header image, text and other stuff that we have here. And it doesn't have to be actual content. It can just be some dummy data. The main thing is that now we know that here, this is a reserved place for the header image, for example. So those are just going to be other things to think about when we are working and creating our application, is that if we are given a wireframe, we have to do exactly what the wireframe does, because that's how the client wants it. That's what the people who are building the website want it as. Because if we do something completely different, then they wouldn't like it, or it wouldn't be enough for them. The last thing is to go ahead and do some user research to get to know more about the people. That's not really our case, because that should be more for the UX team. We should just be building the website, but that is something else that another category of a field would be doing, is to kind of cater content towards the audience, the target audience that it is that they want. So that's a little bit of the user experience. The one that we do want to do most of is mobile responsiveness right here. And what mobile responsiveness is that if you really think about it, when you are going to be looking up something, majority of people is going to be looking at it through a phone rather than a computer or laptop. So you should always have to design your websites in a smaller screen first, and then move up from there so it'll look good on all platforms. So it'll look good on your phone, your tablet, your computer, even a projector, if that's one of the main things that you want. Is that you should go from smallest first and then go to biggest. And how that would work is that it will really be playing around with a grid system. And we'll go into a grid system once we introduce the style libraries. But you can also try things out inside of this button right here. So right here inside of this button, this actually shows you your website of what it will look like in other devices. So this is like more responsiveness. You can click on this here and you can see how your website looks on a iPad, for example, versus a iPhone X, versus a Pixel 2. So you would have to go and kind of see if it does look good, and then make some adjustments to make sure that it's cohesive with all of these different devices. And how you do that is that you choose the smallest device for the phone, which I guess is iPhone 5. Yeah, so if it looks good on the smallest phone, which is in this case an iPhone 5, then you would know that it will look good for all the other iPhones, and most likely the Pixels as well. And then you would move up one more level. If things look good on the iPad level, then you would move up from there, from the iPad level. And then finally, for web, you can just turn this off. And that's what it will look like for web. So that's, if it looks good on web, then it may or may not look good on iPad or phone. But if you go the other way around, then it would scale up from there. And that's going to be a combination of things. How we are going to achieve this is that we are going to achieve it using different type of styling techniques like the grid system, as well as media queries. And we'll talk about that today as well. So that's a little bit about kind of things to think about when we are styling. And I know it's a lot, but it's actually easier to develop than actually thinking about it like so. But yeah, I'll go ahead and release this here for you all to take a look at and learn more about. And for any of the topics inside of UX design, again, it's its own type of field. I will go ahead and Google it and see if there are any additional resources with that. For example, if you are interested in wireframing, just Google wireframing techniques and it'll show you how to wireframes and other items with that there. So yeah, so that's just some items to keep things in mind. So what I'm going to do is that I am going to style some parts. I'm actually going to implement the image first. So that way we have an image for us to work with. And then I am going to review some some styling techniques that we know already, and then introduce you additional style techniques. And again, we're not going to go through every single way to style. This is just an introduction to styling. It does take time and a lot of research of what it is you're trying to do. Like, for example, if I want this button to look a certain way, you would definitely need to Google it and try and test things out, because that's what all styling is to make sure that things look good, and testing things out to make sure that it is what you want it to be. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's start off by running both of our servers, so that way we can physically see the change as they happen. So let's do that first. And then I am going to also run this yarn start. I'm also going to introduce to you other resources that will be really helpful for some styling as well. So I'm going to wait for that. Okay, looks like everything is loaded. So let's actually go ahead and kind of get image up and running, because right now I don't have an image, and that will be good for styling. So what I'm going to do is to add a new field here for the image. And then when I submit, that should update the user's information and give the user the image, hopefully. So that would be in the account form. And then here, I am going to go ahead and pass in the image. Let me double check the field to see if that is what it's called in the database, because I don't know if I spelled it out or, yep, abbreviated it. So it looks like it is abbreviated. So that would be a IMG image here. And again, we are going to be storing it as a string. So that's what that would be. And then also, if there are any images already, let's go ahead and incorporate that and pass that into the use effect. And then let's make some other changes here for the set user. That would work as well. And then the last thing that we would need is to go ahead and create another input field for the individual image. So I'm actually going to duplicate this one and have this one be profile image. And this one is going to be IMG, IMG, and then IMG. Because it should just be a text field. And I'm going to have a URL be the image itself. So that's what I'm going to do. We'll talk about other ways to incorporate images, but for now, for the easiest way to incorporate it, let's just have it be a URL that we find online. So let me see how that looks like, and then I'll Slack this out. Awesome. So let me Slack out this account form, and then let me go ahead and try to update it to see if it does work and if we are given an image. So there's a lot of images out there. One of the really good resources that I would recommend is something called Unsplash. So Unsplash has really good high definition images, and they have like a wide variety of images that you can use that are royalty free. You just need to tell them who the author is. So I would definitely bookmark this site, because they have some really good images here, like Santa. I just can't, I don't know if that was Santa or not. So let's actually look for an actual picture. Let's do reindeer. And then I would stay away from the iStock one because those ones are paid. These ones here, these are the ones you don't have to pay. Oh, these are some really good ones. I like this one. So what you would do is that you would go ahead and click on the image you want, and then you can download them if you want to do it that way. But how we are going to be doing it is to right click, copy image address. So right clicking and copy image address. So that way that URL links to that image. For example, if I were to paste this, that will go ahead and give me that image I want. So whatever image you want, right click, copy image address. Yes, you could technically download it, but it does take up some memory and everything like that. And I'll show you that way too, but for now, let's just do it this way. So let me go ahead and paste that here in the input box. And then I am going to do Mr. Oh wait, the mean one. This one is going to be gold. And let's see if that updates. And that looks like it did. So now we have an image to work with. Sweet. So go ahead and do that as well. And it doesn't have to be the same image I choose. Just choose any image. And then we are going to style this so it will look a little bit better. Awesome. So let's go ahead and talk about what we just did. So if you add in any additional fields, in our case, we added the image field. I just added that field within the form. So that way the user has a way to add in that field as well. The other thing that we did is inside of account singular, we are incorporating the image coming in from the database as source and then colon the image like so. But we are going to style this because as you can tell, if I were to use this, it's really bad looking on the web and it's a huge image. And then even if I go ahead and check that inside of my iPhone X, it is still a huge image, right? So that's why we need to style things, bring it down to scale, things like that. Okay, so let me go ahead and we're actually going to start off in the home page, introduce some concepts first, and then we'll move on into this page here. So we'll start off in the home page first. So in the home page, that'll be this home.js here, like so. And I'm actually going to have multiple H1s, so I'm just going to have like 3 or 4 of them. And I'm going to style them different ways so we can review different ways that we can style. So the first way that you can style is obviously with CSS. So there are some CSS files that you can put inside of here. And then to use them, you can import where the CSS file is. The thing is that I would only do it this way if you have a little bit of styles that you are ready. Because what does CSS stand for?
Cascading style sheets.
Yeah, cascading style sheets. So what that means is that even though that we are styling like the code section, that means that it has to go through and cascade down each line of code before it reaches this section here. So for smaller styles like what we have right here, that works. That's totally fine. It doesn't interfere with anything. But if we have a style sheet that are a couple hundred to a couple thousand lines of code, that will take a while for you to go to the style it is that you have. And especially if your style it is that you are implementing is at the bottom of that couple hundred or thousand lines of style sheet code, then it could really boost down performance. So that's why for CSS and other stuff, it is good to do here and there. But it's not the preferred way for React because it does slow things down if we have too much styles. So that's one way. The other way that you can do it is within the individual inline style itself. And just a reminder of how that would look like is that it will just look like inside of 2 curly braces, and then the style it is that you want inside of here. So let's just do background. And let's actually go ahead and look at colors now. So there are other color libraries like this, but the one that I recommend is called the Adobe Color Wheel. No, Adobe Sparks, which is this one right here. And this one is really good because it lets you go ahead and play around with colors. So let me slack this one out as well. I would definitely bookmark this because it's a really good color resource here. And with this, they go into different types of colors. Like you can have complementary colors, triad, monochromatic colors, things like that. And you can play around with those so you can go ahead and make other color palettes. You can also click on this Explore tab up here, and that will go ahead and show you pre-existing color palettes that you can use. Like for example, you can Google like I want a yellow theme-ish. So that will show you all of the yellow theme items that you can use. And those are the colors that look good with that yellow. So that will go ahead and help you out there. So in our case, we can create our own, or we can just search one up. Let's actually do winter and see what comes up for winter. And I kind of like this blue one. That might look good. Let's see if there are any others. I don't know how that one is a winter theme. But yeah, that is a good theme here. Is this blue one. Ooh, this gold one will work as well. So yeah, so if you like a color theme, what you would do is that you would click on that color theme, and these are your individual hex code that you can use for the colors. So for example, if I want to use this color, I would just click on copy and then go ahead and utilize that here inside of the string, obviously. And that will go ahead and change the color of what I have there. So that is a little bit better than for me saying blue, because blue is a very different color than the hexadecimal, right? So that's a little bit too bluish in this case. I want something more lighter, and that would be like so. And then let's also change the color to be white. And then lastly, we'll do the font size. And if it's double words, it would be camel case. And then also with numbers, you are also going to be doing this as well of within the strings. So you can do 40 pixels or you can do 140. Again, it's just a lot of playing around to see what's good. I kind of like 40. So that's one way to style is inline styling. But as you can see here, I would only do it for something little like this. Anything else more, it wouldn't be ideal because if you have a lot of property styling, then this will get cluttered and it will take more out of your development. So that's why this wouldn't be the best for if you were to go ahead and style multiple styling attributes. But only like if you just have one or two elements that you are doing, then this would make sense. So that's one way. The other way is very similar to this way, and that is to style things as a module. How that would work is that we are going to have like a styles module here, and it would be a object of styles. So for example, I have my header one. I'm just gonna do one for spelling. And that would go ahead and take in those attributes, but now inside of this particular curly brace. So I'll do background, and then I'll still have the color be white. And then I'll have it be a different font size, like so. just so we can see some contrast. And then let's get one more color from that palette. Do the gold one here. Now go right here. And then you can actually do multiple of these. So you can do like, this is my second header. So header 2. And I'm just going to copy them here like so and change them a bit. So that would be 2, super small. I'll have this one be this other one here. Oh, I didn't even see that one. I'll do this code one. So then if you want to utilize this way of styling, you can also export this to other components as well. Then what you would do is inside of your style here, you are going to call that style modules or whatever you call it by the name. You don't have to call it style. And then what style key you want to have it apply. So in this case, I want header 1. So that will go ahead and update it into that particular header 1. And then we can do the similar thing for this one, but this one will be header 2. That one's super tiny, but yeah. So those are the ways that we know so far, is that it's going to be styled either with CSS, inline styling, as well as styling as a module. And again, they work, but they're not the most ideal thing for us to do, because once we go ahead and finish this component actually gets a little bit cluttered with a bunch of styles, as well as some items that we have within our tags here. So if we do get an error, it will be a little bit harder to debug because of the additional lines of code that we have. So what we are going to be doing is that we are going to introduce 2 new ways to style, and those would be the most common and preferred way to style your items, is these 2 new ways. So the first way is using a style library, because here this does work, but a style library is going to have already predefined styles that you can use. And you can use the one that we learned when we have Rails. If you were to do that, you would go ahead and go into the public index.html, and this is where you would put that link of the CDN. And the CDN is how you would go ahead and incorporate the style library. So that's one way that you can do it. The only one that I would recommend to do that is going to be semantic, because semantic with React doesn't work too well the other way anymore. So with the CDN, it will still work. If you were to do that, you would have to utilize class names. And to do a class name, just know that it's just class name like so, because class it means something else inside of your project. So that's what you would do for that case. But the way that we'll be doing it is by installing a package for the style library. And again, each of the style libraries like Bootstrap, Materialize, Semantic UI, they should have a React package for it. So if you want to look up React style libraries, you can kind of play around with those. But let's go ahead and utilize the one called React Bootstrap. So this is the one that we are going to be using for this example. Again, you might be using the Materialize one, and then the semantic one, you have to use a CDN, because there is some nasty errors that comes if you were to utilize that currently because of the recent updates that React went through. So React Bootstrap is using the Bootstrap library, but instead of doing it as a class name, which is what this is doing, it actually has some style components. So let me show you how that would look like real quick. So for example, if I want to have a button, instead of me giving a class a button, I can go ahead and import the button from the style library and then use that like a component. So this is my button component here. And then how you can have different types of components is to go ahead and pass in different types of props. So here, there is a variant prop, and then you can change the color based off of the different prop for the variant. Here are some other types as well. So that's what we'll be doing majority of our styles is with a style library. And to get us started off, just go ahead and read the documentation of whatever style library it is that you're using. In our case, since we are using the React Bootstrap, we are going to do the getting started. And here we're not using npm install. We're actually going to be using yarn add. And it's okay to not include this part. That is just to make sure that the version is good. We would just need to do this part right here. So let's go ahead and do that part there. So if that is the case, go ahead and stop your client server. And what you are going to do is that you are going to add in the style library that it is that you're using. Again, in our case, it's going to be React Bootstrap. And then it looks like I also need to have Bootstrap as well. And I don't need the other one because that specifies a version. I'm okay with having the most up-to-date version. Something else that we are going to be adding for later is called style components. This is where we are going to be making our own style components because these ones right here, Bootstrap already styled them a certain way. But if I want to create my own style components, this is how I am going to be doing that. So this is the more React way of styling, is that we are going to be styling with style components rather than having things be a class name and style sheets and everything like that. So we are going to go ahead and utilize this here. Let me double check if that is correct. Bootstrap, and then Bootstrap like so. Sweet. So go ahead and have those, and that will install these 3 packages here. And technically, we should be adding these packages at the very beginning when we created the project itself. So remember at the beginning when we created the React project, we added Axios and React Router DOM. React Router DOM. We would also add in our style libraries as well. So this is that step of adding in all of our packages, is this step right here. And also moment if you are using something with time, things like that. But you can actually add this any time within your project, but it's good to do it at the very beginning. So you have it all good to go, ready to set it up. So go ahead and do that. We're going to talk about the Bootstrap stuff first, and then we'll talk about the style component stuff after. So let's talk about the React Bootstrap first. So yeah, that might take a sec. And once you are good to go, or once that finished, go ahead and do a yarn start again to start your server again. The next thing that we need to do is that we need to go ahead and incorporate the styles, because that's the main thing that we need to do within our React library, is to incorporate the styles, because there's 2 libraries that we installed. The actual like formatting of it, and then the Bootstrap is the actual styling of it. We need to configure the styles for that to work, and that's what this line right here. So inside of the documentation of whatever tool it is that you're using, it should have a similar line of code. And we need to do that in the index.js. So that way we apply those changes throughout our whole entire application. Because anything inside of the index.js, that is considered global. So let's go ahead and add this line of code inside of our index.js. And you would need to do this depending on what your style library is. So for Bootstrap, this is what you do. But for Materialize and your other stuff, it might be a little bit different. Go ahead, Danny.
So when I did the yarn start, it's saying something's already running on port 3000. And then it asks, would you like to run the app on another port instead? I'm guessing it's because Rails is running on a specific,
So
I don't know.
Rails should be running on 3001. So
Okay.
you can
Maybe
stop
I just,
both servers and redo them again.
okay, yeah, maybe I didn't specify the 3001
Yeah.
when I started it. Okay, sweet, thank you.
Yep. And then the other thing might be that there might be another project running somewhere else. So that's how we can configure our Bootstrap library, is to import that line of code. And then to use it inside of the documentation, it says whatever component it is that we are using, we need to go ahead and import them. There's two ways to import them. You can do it by each component itself, or you can do it like within a module type situation. And we'll be playing around with both. So that's what we'll be doing. And then all of the components is going to be inside of the components tab. But let me go ahead and take a sec to talk about the layout first. So there is going to be something called the grid system. And a lot of style libraries have a grid system. And what the grid system is that it splits up your content into 12 equal parts. So it splits it up into 12 equal parts. There are a few exceptions to that. There are some that does it in 14 parts or 16 parts. I know for Materialize and Bootstrap, they do 12, and that's kind of the most common one is 12. I know Semantic does 16. So that just splits it up into more parts there. And how that would work is that you would have the ability to add in rows and columns. So for example, if I want to have things side by side, it would be a row of 2 columns. So that would be side by side there. And then if you have 3, then it will be 3 columns. And then you can have things a little bit wider with this, or a little bit smaller. And then change the width from there within like centering and things like that. So that is how we're able to lay out stuff with your style library, is to utilize the grid system. Let me give you an example of the grid system. We actually saw it here. So here, this is utilizing the grid system, especially this part right here. So here you can see that all of these photos, if you were to do them manually, they would be one on top of the other or all on the same side. But if you were to utilize the grid system, you can have 4 rows of 2. So that way the content will look like this. And then you can also add like a little bit spacing. So you can see there's spacing here. And then here, there's actually a gutter here. So it's not all on the edge. It's actually within a container itself. So you can see all of the content is within that container. So that's utilizing the grid system. Another one is, let's actually go into the DevPoint site real quick. This also utilizes the grid system as well. So for example, for this, for me to have it to be side by side, this is 1 row with 2 columns. So that's how you can have things into a 2 columns so it can be side by side. Down here, this is a row with 3 columns. But here's where the mobile responsiveness will come in, is that it will be 3 columns starting off with the web, but as you go smaller, it will shrink back down to 2, and then it will also shrink back down to 1. So depending on your different screen size, that might change the grid depending on what size it is for your screen size. And we can specify that with Bootstrap as well, because with Bootstrap, you can have things be responsive grid. That's this one here. And that's where you can specify what it will look like on a small screen versus a medium screen, versus a extra small screen, etc. So those are just additional props you can add. So then this is what it'll look like on a big screen. But then as I go smaller, it will go ahead and change that grid layout to be more side by side, or it could break it into the next line, or it could be a whole nother element. So that's utilizing the grid system. And that's what will really help with kind of doing more mobile responsive stuff, is to utilize this here. So I'll show you how to do that. Not for the homepage, because the homepage doesn't have anything. Maybe for this one here within the profile page for sure. So if I want to use anything inside of this, it will be inside of components. And I am actually going to put something inside of a container. So that way it's not at the edge. Because right now, if we go back here, it's at the edge of the page itself. So what I could do is that I could put each every single one in its own container, or you can actually put a container at the app level. So inside of the app.js, this is where it would render out all of the different pages, right? But the only thing that I don't want is I don't want the nav bar to be within the container. So here, if that's the case, I would go ahead and do an import container from dot slash, oh, not dot slash, this will be from React Bootstrap. Like so. So then I would just wrap it like a div. So here, instead of empty fragment, I can just say container. So then now with that change, let me see if that does apply the changes. That would be outside of the gutter. And then already that would look better outside of that. This image is still huge, so that's why that doesn't do anything with the image, but everything is all inside of a container now, which looks a lot better. So that's what we usually would do for your app.js, is that if you want all of the content within a container, it will be like so. So let me go ahead and select this out. Let's go back into the home and let's incorporate some other elements from React Bootstrap. So let's go into the home page. And let's go ahead and I don't want to style that. Let's see what else that they could have that we can incorporate. Let's go ahead and so alerts is how we can implement Flash messages. So you can actually create your own Flash messages with the alert keyword. But if you were to do it this way, it would always show up. You would also have to kind of make it be like a timer. So it'll show up and then it'll slowly disappear with that. So that has to do with a little bit more animations. So we'll talk about that on a different lecture. But if you just wanted to have it show up and you don't mind that it will always be showing, then this is how you are going to be doing Flash messages. And so for example, if you want to do a Flash message, it would go ahead and be inside of your, here inside of the catch. It will go ahead and you're going to display a Flash message here. And then that will be a separate component to actually go ahead and display what kind of Flash message it is and all that. So if you're interested in that, then I would go ahead and look up how that is, because each style library has a certain way of doing things. But for now, we'll just leave it as is for now. We don't need to touch too much on that. Let's actually go ahead and do a button. And I like this. Okay, the blue theme here. So let's go ahead and do this info one. And then let's say that I want to use this button right here. If that's the case, then what you would need to do is that you would need to go ahead and do an import capital B button from React Bootstrap, because that's what the component is from that library. And then to use it, you just use it like a regular button. So whatever element it is that you are doing, it will be like so. I'll just say click me, and then that will give me a style button. But if I want it to be a certain style, I need to have it be a different prop. So I'm going to duplicate this and then pass in the prop that I want. The prop I want is this variant one. So variant outline info, that's the one that I have here. And you would just put that like so. So it's just based off of the documentation of how you would do things. Nice. But yeah, so that is your style library. The other way that we are going to be doing things is to create our own style library, because as you can see here, Bootstrap has their own way of doing things of how they would style. But let's say that I do want it to be a certain color, but they don't have the color it is I want. Like for example, if I want to have it be, instead of that blue, it'll be this blue, then I would have to create my own style component for me to work with. So I'll kind of show you how to do that as well. So yeah, let me slack this out so you can have what I have. And I am actually going to, let's see. We are going to style the profile page now when we come back from break. And we'll be utilizing the style components from React Bootstrap, as well as making our own style components. And we'll talk about that as well. And then we'll also be working with images because that image is still big. So that's where we are going to leave off for now. So let's go ahead and take a break. We'll come back at 7:15 and then we'll fix this page so it'll look a little bit better. Okay, let's get back into it. Let's actually style the nav bar with Bootstrap, and then we'll go back to this page. So yeah, let's start off with the nav bar first, not the account or account form yet. So that's this one right here. So that would be best with Bootstrap as well. And then Bootstrap also has their navs. Oh, they also have nav bars. I wonder what the difference is. So, okay, it looks like navs are just links. I think what we want is a nav bar. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. So yeah, let's do that instead. And let's shop around of what we are going to be doing. Kind of like this one, but with this design, this one right here. So if that's the case, I need to go ahead and copy the content over. And it looks like I need to bring in the navbar component as well as container component. And everything, if you ever see a dot of something, that means that it just stems off of the navbar component. So let's do that. So let's go ahead and import navbar as well as container from React Bootstrap. And then don't replace your content. You would need to alter your content here and make it work for your navbar. So here, let's go ahead and fix this a bit. Let's see. Let's see here. So here, this is where if you click on it, it takes you to the home page. So here I am just going to say home. And then I am going to have my link be inside of that navbar brand here. So I'm going to do this real quick, but I don't think it needs the li because the example doesn't need the li. And then that will take care of that. And then we'll fix it so it looks a little bit better. Like so. So that will handle the home. I don't know why it doesn't like that. Okay, now it likes it. I don't know what happened. I didn't do anything at all. It just fixed itself. And then here, let's have this one be the username for the profile. That'll be on this side here. And take out the LIs. Then let me go ahead and see how that looks like. And then we can go ahead and delete this. And then that would change depending on your style library. So this is the Bootstrap way of doing a nav bar, but other libraries might do it a little bit differently. So let's see how that will look like if it looks good. Doesn't. Oh, so this is a very common issue. So I have a nav bar here, but my component is also called nav bar. And what is going on is that it doesn't know which nav bar it is that you are talking about now. So usually with our component nav bar, we need to change the name. We'll just call it main nav bar because that doesn't conflict with the React Bootstrap one. So now we're just going to refactor nav bar to be main nav bar here. And let's also do the main nav bar here as well. And then that should help fix it. And that looks good. And then let's actually see if that does navigate where we want it, and it does. And then how else can we change it to make it look like better? So yeah, I actually want a little bit of that there. So if that's the case, I would need to change the background and the variant to be dark. So let's go ahead and do that. So for the nav bar, need to pass in the prop of the background and the variant to be dark. Nice. And then that one takes the style as the link. If we want to be more like this, it looks like we can do it the href way. So if that's the case, I need to change this instead of a link. It'll be href to home. And take the links out. And then let's see what we can do for the text. I think we had to do a similar thing too. So that way it doesn't have this underline. But this one, I'm fine with the underline. That's fine. Sweet. So that's how we are going to do our style navbar. And this is a lot more better than what we have with our unordered lists. It does navigate us around as well. So the functionality should still be there. It's just the way it looks now is slightly different. And I also changed the name so it doesn't conflict with the one inside of our style library. So here is the navbar. So now let's go ahead and go into fixing the profile page, because that takes up some work for sure. So looks like this part, the main thing is the image. So let's fix that first. This one has figures, which technically works, but I want images. And it looks like there's different kinds. There's this one that's rounded, the circle, and then the thumbnail. And there's also fluid as well. I actually like the thumbnail one. So let's go ahead and do that one. And it looks like it is an image, and you need to pass in the prop of thumbnail. So let's go ahead and do that. So that will be inside of our account. And we are going to import our image here from React Bootstrap. Then change this instead of the image, it would be like an IMG image here, and then pass in the prop of thumbnail. And that would change the style. I think I need to specify the size too. So let me take a look at that in a sec. So yeah, it does fix it, but I do want it to be smaller. Just go to this. There we go. So let's go ahead and specify how many columns it takes. Well, actually, that would be like a column grid. We wouldn't do it like that. Can we also do other props? So these are where the props are here. I wonder if I can do a width one. We can test it out. So width to be equal to like 200 pixels. Nice. That looks good. I actually want that to be in a card, the whole content. So let's go ahead and utilize a card. What a card is that it has a image, some information, and maybe some buttons. And that's what I want for this here is that it will be the main title, the image, and then some information there. So let's do that part actually. So let's go ahead and have this one. We'll go ahead and copy this over and then change it to our case. So it looks like this one doesn't use the image. Well, we can just leave it. It also uses the card as well as the button, I think, from React Bootstrap. So let's go ahead and do that here. And we'll keep at that width there, and that's fine. And then let's see, let's have the image be the same image like so. The card title would be their username. So let's bring this down now. And then the content, let's bring that in. I'm actually going to do this here. And I'm not going to do a p tag. I'm going to do a BR, so it's on the next line. I don't need a button, so I can delete that button. So that will take care of these items. I'll just comment them out so you know where I'm pulling those from. And then I'll leave this image because that is something that we can use. So let's see how that looks now. And that looks nice. Sweet. We'll come back to images and we'll talk about images real quick. Our last thing that we need to style is the form because the form looks pretty ugly as well. So let's go ahead and do that real quick with Bootstrap, and then we'll talk about our style components and images. So now it will be the account form. And then right now it is this type here. But let's see what Bootstrap has. So I think they have a forms one, and they do. And then, oh, I accidentally clicked on something else. There we go. So that is a much more better styling form than what we have. let's go ahead and give that a shot. Let's see what other variations they have. This would be a good one as well. They also have it for each of the different inputs. So there's color, checkboxes, inline, without labels, some range, select. This is probably our select box that we would style it as, and other things too. So let me see what fields we have. So we have 2 text fields, and then 1 select box, and then 1 button. So let's go ahead and kind of start off at the top one of the input fields. So it would be form and button. So let's copy this here. And then again, we're not going to replace the content. We're just going to change it for it to work in our case. So I'm going to put it right under our own form here and replace it with our own field so it would work. And then for this to also work, I need to import form and button. From React Bootstrap. And then let's see here what we need to do. So I don't have a name. It's called username. So let's change this to username. And this one will be type text. I think the form control is what Bootstrap uses. So I'm actually going to have all of this part inside of the form control actually. And this one would just be type text. And I don't know what that is. Is that just, oh, that's just a little information there. I don't want that. Let me delete that then. And then we have another one. This one is form basic username. So we need to change that as well so it knows. And this one will be a profile image, This one is form basic. I'll just do image. And let's go back up here. Grab this part here, bring that down. Paste that here. And then this one will also be type text. And then we don't have a checkbox. We have a select. So let's actually go back and see what the select is. So that'll be select here. I just want a default select. You can change the size if you want it to be like that. So that would be a form select, and then the options here. And let's bring down our stuff for the select. I'm actually going to bring this part actually. And then replace this option like so. And then I am going to do these 2 props inside of the form select. So it'll look like this. And I don't need this select anymore since we're using the styled one. And that would be good there. Change this to member level. I'm just gonna do level. And that could be primary, that's fine. So let me see how that looks. I'm going to comment out this form now, for just in case if things doesn't work, I can still have it. But this stuff should be the new style form. It just looks a little bit different. So let's go back into React. Refresh. And that looks better. Nice. So yeah, that looks like a much more better form than what we have. And so far, a lot more better styling in our end as well. Sweet. So that is what we can do with Bootstrap. And again, there's other elements that you can play around with other components. Like they have a carousel for images. They also have modals, which is good for like pop-ups and other things that you can play around with as well. So those are just some of the items. But let's say that I do like what I see here, but this button isn't the blue I want it to. So if that's the case, then I would need to go ahead and do my own custom styles. And to do that, we are going to be using style components. And we can do that two ways. We can edit the existing styles of this button, or we can create a whole new style button for us to use. And I'll show you both of those ways. But first, let's talk about images and how images work. So that would be here, but let me select this out of the account form. Oh, actually, it does look good, but does it work? So let's try that out. So let's change it back to, yeah, bronze. The username would be Bob. And then I'm gonna have a different reindeer picture. Let's do. Nice. I like this reindeer. Copy image address. Bring that over here. Paste and then submit. And then you know if it works, if the functionality would work as well. So that looks like that didn't. And let me check inside of my server to see if that did an update or anything. So that didn't do an update. So yeah, it looks good now, but now it doesn't work. So let's take a look at what's going on. My suspicion is that the value might not be saving into the state like we want it to. So let's take a look at that. Let's take a look inside of our inspector tools. And we are going to go ahead and go into our components now and see if we type anything in that saves it to state. So now we are dealing with more stuff. Let's do our form, count form. And then there is our state. And then let me type stuff in now. And that does change. I'll just paste. That also changes. And then let me see if this change. That does as well. So it looks like they are saving in state. Let me go ahead and submit now. And that should update stuff, but it doesn't. So it might not be the form. It might be our update action, which is this one right here. Because I might not be passing in the ID maybe. Oh, I'm not passing in the handle submit. Yep, that's what it is. I forgot to do the handle submit. inside of the form for this form here. So I need to have that. So it knows what to do when it submits. Okay. So hopefully that solves that issue. So let me try that one more time. And that looks good. You're the mean one. Let me grab this photo again. Yeah, we'll do bronze. And let's submit that. And yep, that does update. So yeah, it looks like I was missing this on submit, and that's why it didn't do anything when we did submit it. But yeah, that's the important thing to do is that when you are styling stuff, it shouldn't break the functionality. So it should just change the looks of it. So here is this component now. Technically, we can delete the commented out code if you want to, but I'll just leave it there as notes. Awesome. So let's talk about creating our own style components and then images too. So with images, if you are pulling them in with the database, like what we are doing here in the account, we just bring them in with the prop and then have them like so. So that's nothing too crazy there. But if you were to go ahead and have your own images, I would store them within a folder inside of your source here. So that would be new folder, images or image, whatever you want to call it. But this is the same name as my prop, so that is a bad name. So might as well just do images. So just create a new folder. And then when you are having some local images, you will put them inside of this particular folder. So for example, let me go ahead and do, wonder if they have a picture of the North Pole. North Pole. Nice. So let's do this one here. And in this case, let's download it. And then what I am going to do is that I'm actually going to find that image and drag and drop it to that image folder. So that will go inside of this image folder here. And that works. So if you do have a local file of the image, then you would go ahead and incorporate that inside like so. So here it would be import and then the name of what you want to call the image. So in this case, it will be North Pole. And from where the image is located with the name and the extension. So that was going out one folder. So that will take me into the components. I need to go out one more folder. And then I need to go to images. And then I need to do that image name. And we'll keep the author's name there for his credit. So copy relative, well, I'll just say copy path, and that would also do it as well. But I don't want all of this. So yeah, maybe that was a bad thing. I only wanted this part here. So this will only work for if you have this image. If you have a different image, then it will be whatever that image name is. So yeah, it will be // and then the image name. So, and then if you want to use it, it will be very similar to what we have here. But in this case, it would be what you called it. So this one is the North Pole. And then that's how that would work. And now we do have multiple images that you can work with. So yeah, so that's how you're able to go ahead and have images that are within a folder. But just note that it does take up space because of like the image size and quantity or quality of the image itself. So what I would recommend is to use this other tool called Tiny PNG. And there's other ones as well. And I think some Adobe products does this too. But what Tiny PNG is that you just drag and drop the image and that will compress the image into a smaller format and size. So that way you can use that image and it would take as much space. So you can go ahead and use this tool as well to compress your images for that. So yeah, go ahead and bookmark this. The free version lets you only do 20 images of 5 megabytes at a time. But I found a trick for if you were to have more than 20 images for a reason, you would go ahead and open it up into a new incognito window. And then that will give you 20 more images. And then you can keep doing that to get 20 more and 20 more. So that way you don't have to pay to go pro. You can just utilize that trick and that will help you from there. But yeah, so that is another tool for images. Typically I would only do images within a folder if it is the images you're using a lot of. So this would be like your logos. If you have logos, that would go there. It would be like certain background images that you use a lot or certain other images that you use a lot that would go in the folder. If it isn't necessary to be in a folder, later on, I'll show you another place where you can put it and then you can reference it by a URL. So that will be with Cloudinary if you are interested. That's what we'll be using later on. But again, that's for a different topic. So that has to do with images there. But now let's go ahead and talk about what happens if I want to go ahead and create my own style components or change a existing style component into a style it is that I want. So this is where style components come into play. And this is what the package it is that we also installed to show you what it is. We install React Bootstrap, and then we also install something called style components. So let's go and Google style components so you can see the documentation, and then we'll talk about what that is. I'm not going to use Bootstrap anymore, so I'll go ahead and Google this here. As you can see, styling does take a lot of time. So far, I only styled a few elements, and that took like over an hour. So that's why I would definitely leave it towards the end when you have everything working first. So yeah, so this is the style component style library as well as their documentation. And this is what we'll be using to create our own style components. Because right now we are using bootstraps, and this is all doing the bootstrap styles. But what if we want to kind of tweak it a bit or create our own reusable style component? Then this is the library to help us out with it. And it's quite simple. All it is that you just create a variable of a name that you come up with your style component. And then you can style whatever HTML element, and then it takes it as a template literal. And template literals we did before is just taking what is within those backticks. And then you can actually write just regular CSS here. So you don't have to do like the camel casing or putting things into strings or anything like that. You can just do what you did for CSS, and that will go right here, which is awesome. So that's what we are going to be utilizing as well to create our own style components. The other thing is that because it's a component, it also has other properties that a component has as well, such as props. So then we can pass in different props to have different versions of the same style component, which is pretty awesome. So that is what we are going to talk about as well, is to have different props passed in for the same exact component. And then you can also look at the documentation and some showcasing and things like that. So that would be some pretty good techniques. It also goes into more stuff of like animations. If you are interested with animations, we'll do that in another lecture. and the other one is going to be media queries. I don't know where they would put that, but with media queries, it would be what it will look like on one screen size versus another screen size. And then theming is if you want to have things theme a certain way, you can do that with style components as well. So let me show you how to do that. So with this, it would be yet another component folder, but this one is where we'll keep our styles. So you can put in the components. I typically do it in the source of another folder called styles, because this is where I'm going to put all of my style components is right here. And each of your individual page should have its own style component if you want to organize it that way. Or each of the major elements would have its own style components. So for example, for my case, I am styling the profile. So this will be profile styles.js. And this one isn't technically a component, so it could be lowercase as well. So in order for us to use this, we would need to import the styled from style components. So the import styled from style component. And then we can go ahead and begin to do our styling. So for example, if I want to create my own container, it would be, make sure that you don't call it container. Because if I do call it container, that conflicts with what Bootstrap has. So you have to think of more unique names. So I'm just going to call it main container, like so. And this one is a styled. And then what you put here is what HTML element you want to have it style. I'll just have it be a div. And then this is where you are going to put your styles. So for example, I can do background, linear gradient to bottom right. And then this one will go to, where is my color palette? It'll go from this blue to that gold. So I'm going to do this blue to this gold. I want to see what that would look like. And then if you want to use this in other components, then all you need to do is export it. So now I have a style div called main container that I can use. So let me slack this out for now. Let me see what's going on. I think it's just taking a sec to take that in. Yeah, it's just taking a sec there. So let's copy this over inside of Slack. And then to use this, you can use it in anywhere that you want. For example, let's use in the profile, for example. All you need to do is import it. And since it's a regular import, you need the curly brace. And then whatever you are calling it, I called it main container from dot dot slash dot dot slash. And you go one more dot dot slash. Styles. And then profile styles. So out one folder, out another folder. Oh, I just need two dot dot slashes. So let's see how that looks like. Oh, I didn't even use it. To use it, you just use it like whatever HTML element it is that you are styling. So here, since this is a div, I technically could do this. That would be the main container. And that looks good. Well, better than before. Nice. So let me slack this out for the profile. And if you want to have a additional one, like let's say we want to create our own button, let's go ahead and do that here. It would just be another export cons here. So it will be export cons, my button. I'll just go do my btn equals style dot button element. And then here you can go ahead and specify what styles you want for it. So I want the background to be this field here. And then it would be another one of color white. And then this one will be font. And if it's double words, it just takes the same convention as CSS. So it will just be like so. And then to use it, so here's the profile styles. We just need to import it from my button and then just use a button with my button now. So then going back to my profile, I'm just going to do just a random button here and import this of my button. And this would be my button. And that would be click. And then other stuff you can add. So you just treat it like a regular button. Let me see how that looks. And that looks decent. Nice. Obviously, it needs some more styles, but that is our own style component. So not only can I use it here, I can also use it in the home page. I can also use it in the form and in other areas that I can use it as well. So here is the profile.js. So what do we do if we want to have individual props for our style components? So let me kind of show you how that would look like. So if that's the case, we need to go ahead and kind of define the props somehow. So you can do it multiple ways. You can have it be a variable, or you can just do it within the style itself. Either way, it would work. So let's go through that example real quick. So export cons, I'll just call it header. Yeah, I'll just call it header equals style.h1. And then we are going to have the color be white for the text. And then we are going to do text align center. And then also the font size is going to be depending on the props. So I'm going to have props here coming in. And if they have the props of large, or I'll just do LRG, then change it to 40 pixels. Else change it just to do 20 pixels. And then I'll just end that here. Sometimes you might have to do a Bing important. What I mean by that is this. important. The reason for that is that sometimes your style library might override it, but if you do being important, that will make sure that this style is what we want to have. So here, what this is doing is that if I'm passing in a prop of large, then it will be 40 pixels. If not, then it'll be 20 pixels. So let's go ahead and do that. So here is the profile styles again. And then we are going to, let me see. I am going to do that inside of the home actually, because we have multiple headers here. Import the style header, which is called header from dot dot slash styles slash profile styles, because that's where it's at. And then I can use a header like a H1 now. So here I can just say, instead of H1 class name, I can just say header here and then header here. Let me see how that looks like. So that is the regular one. Let's go ahead and say my page so there's a difference. I think I have the text as white. Yeah, that's my bad. Let me change that styles. The color shouldn't be white. The color should be this color. I was looking at the wrong one. So here's the profile styles again. That would look better. Nice. And then here inside of our home, I can, if I want it to be normal, I'll just leave it as is. But if I want it to be large, I just pass in the prop of large. So then that will go ahead and change it because it's the same component, but depending on the prop, you can change that property itself of, for this example, you can do the size, but for other ones, you can do like color and other values that you can have. So here is the home.js like so. And then you can get crazy with this. Inside of the lecture example, you can create a function that takes in a size, and based off of the size, it will give you either large, small, or medium. And then you can pass in that function and calculate that with the props. So that's one way you can do things as well. Okay, there is one more thing I would need to talk to you about with styling, and that is media queries. And then we are going to talk about the project a bit, but let's take a quick break first. Let's come back at 8:10. And when we come back, we'll go ahead and talk about the media queries as well as the project coming up. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about styling, and then we'll talk about the project coming up within the break. Okie dokie. So one of the things is that if you want to style something that is existing from your style library, like for example, inside of here, if I want to, oh, what is this? Let me check real quick. I think it's in the account form. So yeah, let's go to this one here. So inside of the account form, if I want to change this style up a bit, like just tweaking it, you can do that as well with style components. So if you want to do that, you would need to go ahead and import that item from that style library. So for example, button from React Bootstrap. And then how you are going to style it is, I just close that so it's a little bit better, is that it's very similar of what we did here. So export or export const. I'll call this, I already had my button. I'll call this gold button equals styled. And then within parentheses, that button element here, or whatever element you are trying to do, that will go within the parentheses. And then all you need to do now is just to style it however it is that you want. I believe this one is the gold color. So I will just have the background be gold. And then I'm also going to do bang important, just so that we have our styles take precedence versus the one that we have inside of our style library. So here is our profile styles again. And then let's go ahead and use that in our account form. And then I'm actually going to duplicate this, but at the very top, I am, instead of importing the button, I'm going to import my Go button, so Go BTN, from that style component part. So dot slash styles slash profile styles. And then afterwards, I am going to use this button to be gold button. And then you can use it as a regular button here. So then now we have technically two submit buttons, but one of them has our style tweaked with what they have there. So that's how you're able to do that. And it looks like there are also some hovering effects and some border too. So you would also style those as well. Speaking of which, that leads on to our next topic. So let me go ahead and slack this out real quick. If you want to go ahead and do some props, you can do some of those. I think there's also some other stuff too, like if we have some, let's do some API references actually. But yeah, there's some placeholder stuff you can do. There's also a hover one that you can do as well. I'm just going to Google it. So style components on hover. That will give me a faster result. So it looks like this one gives me an example. And the hover is just this one right here. So let's go ahead and use that within our profile styles. And that's how you're able to do a hover effect. There's also like other effects as you can do too. And that has to do more with CSS than this. So then now if I go ahead and hover over this, that would change colors because that's why I changed. I'm actually going to do a Bing important too to make sure that that works. And let's check the example. Oh no, I don't want to download it. Yeah, that's all we need to do. Yep, that works now. The last thing I want to talk about is media queries. So media queries. With media queries, I would go ahead and utilize this site right here. This is how you can specify your own custom styles depending on the screen size. So for example, if you want your buttons to shrink or grow, you would do that with media queries here. Or change colors, or even change like the different types of items. You would do that all with media queries. So there's a minimum width or max width of however many pixels. Usually, I would Google like what's like a average size for mobile. That is what you have for media queries for that there. So to do in style components, you would just Google that. So media query style components. Looks like there's a few here. I'll do the Stack Overflow one. All you need to do is to have this media query like so. But I don't have a breakpoint. I think this one is a better example. So that's all that you need to do. So for example, if I want to have my minimal width of this, I'm actually not going to do that. I'm going to change the color to be a different color. I'll just do red so it's more drastic of a change. So that means that when my screen gets to that size, it will go ahead and apply those styles that I put within the curly brace. So let me slack this out again. And it just takes a while to play around with values and to Google and research to do things. So styling does take a lot out of it. But yeah, let me show you what this does. So right now I do have my go button. So right now, because I did minimum width of 700 pixels, it is red. But as soon as I go down, it will change it to the other styles of yellow. But if you want that flipped, you can, instead of doing min, you can do max. So then if I go ahead and shrink, it will go ahead and apply those styles. But if I grow, then it will go ahead and grab in those other styles. So that's how you can change like the button sizes or the text size and layout by utilizing media queries. And that's what the responsiveness does in the background for the other ones that we have here. But yeah, that's just a quick intro of styling. Again, it just takes a little bit of time and practice to play around with stuff to see what looks good and see what it is that you're looking for. And I would definitely look up some like examples of how to style with Bootstrap or with some style components, because it is a good way to kind of make your website look more better than what it was originally. Any questions about styling at all for now? Go ahead, Daniel.
Do you have to import whenever you're doing like a style, do you have to always import it from Bootstrap if you're doing a specific style?
So for whatever component that you're using, you have to import it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Sweet. So I am going to delete the node module since we aren't going to go back to this project anymore. And then I'll go ahead and push this up. So git add git commit -m to Did I do this yet? There we go. The end of styles and get push origin master. On a different note, later on, I'll go ahead and talk about a little bit about animations to animate stuff, but that's a whole totally different topic from there. So I am now going to introduce to you the project, and then Will is actually going to be coming in a sec, and he'll also kind of talk a little bit of why this project is important. So this is that project of what you have during winter break that is on top of your other assignment of the other React on Rails project as well. So this one is going to be found inside of the winter break above the brain teasers, and it is your personal portfolio. And essentially what this is that it is a React on Rails application, and it only has one model for now, and that is the contact model. And you have to do all of the CRUD actions for the contact model itself. And then there's also different pages that you would have, like a home page, about page, skill page, projects or portfolio page, a work section, and anything else that you want to showcase that would be on side of this particular project as well. So let me kind of give you an example of mine real quick, if I can find it. It would be others, personal, live projects. See all my bookmarks. I want to say it is. So I have this one. This one is an older one. I definitely need to update this one. But essentially what your portfolio is, we'll go to the homepage, is that it will showcase yourself professionally. Because one thing that people will look at when they go ahead and look into hiring you is that they'll take a look at your profile on GitHub. So they'll take a look at how you code, what projects you're doing, and how often you're contributing. The other thing is that if you have a profile or a portfolio project, you should put that inside of your resume. So that way they can go to that URL and they can go ahead and lead into this particular page that kind of showcase yourself in a professional development way. So this is my example. This one is a pretty older example. I definitely need to update it, but it just gives you like a who, what, and all of those other information. So this is like a little bit about yourself with some, if you want to add in links, you can. You can also do skills. And those are the skills that you learn within the course itself. So you can definitely add in those. I wouldn't do hobbies as much depending on your individual job it is that you are having. So for example, if you want to apply for Backcountry, which is a really outdoorsy company, then I would do hobbies and then cater the content to be like rock climbing or biking and stuff like that. So the content of this would be catered towards whatever job it is that you are trying to apply, or make it generic enough where it will cover all of those bases. So you would have a home page and about page as well. And then also another page for your projects. For now, just have your projects be linking to your GitHub. So these are those individual different projects. For example, the coding docs are inside of here. And then if you press on go to site, that will go into that website. But I haven't taught you how to do it live yet. So for now, you would go ahead and just lead it into your GitHub itself. So that's the main basis of the content, is to kind of advertise yourself. You can add in your own images, play around with different styling. And this is a working project that you would go ahead and work on throughout your development career and always make it better as well. The other thing is to also do a contact page. And let me pull up another project real quick of what the contact page would look like. So give me a sec. I actually did one quite recently, but I need to find that. And the contact page is very similar of the contact page on the About Me. I don't know where my Zoom thing is. Oh, here it is. So with that, it is just a way for for others to reach you. So here, this is a separate project, but this is what the contact page is that it just gives people your information, the email, and then a message for you. So this is where if you are advertising yourself well enough, they go to your site and they want to contact you for a future job or a future opportunity. This is that page that it would be going into from there. And the CRUD action that this will be doing is create a contact object in the database. So that will go ahead and create that. So for example, let's do Grinch email my Grinch at gmail.com. I don't know, I'm just gonna type in random stuff. And then when they press send, that will create a contact object itself and redirect back to the home page. On the other end, and we'll talk about this when we get into your authentication, but just have it on another page for now. On the other end, after you are going to go ahead and log in, but later on we'll talk about authentication. But if you go into another page called My Contacts, for example, that's where you can see all of these submissions. So this is the index. And then when you click into it, that would be the show. Right, so you can see the content. You can also see when they sent it on, and that is using moment, and then their email and other relative information from there. And then this is where you can do those other CRUD actions of editing it and deleting it. And things like that as well. So you can do it here as well as inside of that other component within your individual contact list. So that's how the contact functionality should work, is that once you submit the form, it would go here, populate this like so. This one isn't necessary, but in this example, if you read it, it will show up as an open envelope, but if you haven't read it, it will show up as a closed one. So if I did go ahead and do that here, you can kind of see that. And then also with the date here, it can do a calculation of how long ago it was sent as well. So that might be a fun thing to tackle for a little challenge to see how to calculate that. So yeah, so that's the project that you are going to be doing. While you're doing it, once Will comes in, he'll kind of give you more insight about that. But is there any questions about the objectives? So the main objectives is to create the different pages, fill them out with relative information, and then get the CRUD action done for the contacts model. Go ahead, Daniel.
Is this due on the Thursday in January as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, it will be do the same thing. And obviously this one, you are going to be working by yourself, but you can work with other people just to see how like their design or their taste is as well as that. Any other questions? But yeah, that will help you out to kind of get started on your portfolio site. So that way you can have a much more robust start for when you do actually want to finish it. You can go ahead and have that be created like the way that you want it to. And there's some really good portfolio sites out there. Will give you some good examples. And he'll also give you some insights of what to do and what not to do inside of there. It shouldn't be like you're about me. That's one thing I would tell you, is that it shouldn't be like you're about me, because it should be a more professional site that kind of showcase your skills rather than talking a little bit more about you. So I would do it heavily off of like your projects and what you learn and everything like that. And definitely, if you want to, you can connect your resume inside of here. as well as to connect your GitHub inside of here as well. So that's some good elements to include within your not your GitHub, inside of your portfolio site. Sweet. So now I guess we're just waiting on Will for him to come on by, but I'm going to stop the recording here.